What's up, guys? LC Muscles here, and I wanted to do an updated version of my 2017-18 NHL predictions video because there was a lot that happened. I know you had the NHL expansion draft and the NHL offseason happen in the past couple months, so there's a lot that happened, and I want to get into it though. There's a lot of free agency moves, a lot of new things happening. I was gonna wear my jersey, but I'm gonna show you guys. I got my hat, my new Stanley Cup Champions hat. Pretty awesome hat right there. And I also got a new patch, Stanley Cup Final 2017 patch for my patch clutch on my jersey. And I also have this, my 50th anniversary Penguins patch. Pretty awesome patches. I also got to get the 25th edition. I'm gonna get the 25-year one eventually, but right now, that's what I got. So I'm going to start things off a little bit differently with my NHL predictions video. I know there's a lot of teams that improved or got worse in the offseason. But I'm going to start things off in the Pacific Division and move my way up since that's how I lined it up. So in the Pacific Division, I'm going to go from 8th to 1st since there are 8 teams in that division. Starting out with the worst team in the league, I think will be next year, other than the Colorado Avalanche, will be the Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks really didn't do much, honestly, this offseason. They really didn't do much to get better. They lost one of their better players to Vegas in the expansion draft. Time will tell this team will be good, but right now Vancouver's looking like they're going to be another disappointing team. Next up is the Phoenix Coyotes. I think the Coyotes are going to get a little bit better, but still, they're still far away from being a playoff team. I love to see them as like an underrated team, but honestly, Phoenix though does have a long way to go. It's gonna be interesting to see how Antti Raanta is going to be the new goaltender for Phoenix. It's gonna be It's gonna be Antti Raanta is gonna be interesting to see how he does in net. The team is getting better. I think within a couple of years, I think the Phoenix Coyotes will definitely be a juggernaut in the Western Conference. But right now, it's too early to tell. It's still another rebuilding year for the Phoenix Coyotes, I think, and they'll finish with 71 points. Next up is the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings are they didn't do anything that better either. The Kings lost a ton of depth throughout their expansion draft. They really didn't do anything in the draft. They really didn't do anything to improve, and Vegas's core is getting older. They lost Jonathan Quick's getting another year older, showing how Jonathan Quick's team around him is getting worse, and that's resulting in him not playing as well. So the Los Angeles Kings, I think, will be a lot worse than they were last year. Next up is the Vegas Golden Knights at 80 points. I think the Golden Knights will slightly edge out the Los Angeles Kings. This is a bold prediction, but I like what Vegas did in the expansion draft and in the draft. They got some great players from other teams. They got Marc-Andre Fleury, great addition. He's going to be the one holding down that defense pretty much. Their defense is going to be young. Their team is a very young team, but you know what? Vegas is going to be something. I think they'll definitely surprise a lot of people, and I think they'll finish 5th in the division. I think that they're going to really get some good wins, get some very surprising wins. But yeah, I expect Vegas to be 5th place. I think that's a good, reasonable expectation for Vegas this year. If they get 5th place in the division, that is going to be incredible for them. That is going to be incredible because the Vegas Golden Knights, a lot of people are picking them they'll go 8th in the division, probably be last, one of the last teams. I'm thinking the opposite way. I think Vegas is going to be one of the better teams in that division. They won't be as good as the Oilers, the Flames, the Ducks, the Sharks yet, but you know what? They're going to give some good runs for them. So that's why I have the Golden Knights. Next up is the San Jose Sharks. I think the Sharks really got to buckle down. This is their last real playoff run. Joe Thorne's getting another year older. I don't think he's got much longer. You lost Patrick Marleau. That was tough, losing Patrick Marleau to Toronto. This is their real last run they could do anything before they have to really rebuild, honestly. The Sharks in 2016 was their high point. They got to do something now. But right now it's not looking good, though. And they're not going to have the same team within the next couple of years. They're going to be regressing if they don't do anything soon. That's just where it's coming from me. Next up is the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks did lose some key pieces in the expansion draft, and they lost some key players in free agency. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year, but the Ducks will still be a playoff team. I still have the Ducks being a playoff team, but the Ducks, though, I don't see them being as good as the top two right now in the division, which I'll get to in just a second. Speaking of my number two and number one division, I think you should know what they are. First up, the second place team, the Calgary Flames. I love what the Flames did this offseason. They got a lot better. They did what it took to really improve themselves. They wanted to get past Anaheim. They were in the playoffs last year. They wanted to do more this year. I think they did a really good job of improving their team overall. I think they'll finish second in the division. And number one, kind of obvious, the Edmonton Oilers. It's hard to bet against the Oilers winning the division this year. The Edmonton Oilers are such an incredible team, even though I completely disagree that Connor McDavid won the Hart Trophy. That was completely ridiculous. I get it. They went to the playoffs for the first time since 2006, but really? Sidney Crosby should have been the MVP. He continued to have another dominant year, but you know what? They won the Stanley Cup, so how am I going to complain? We got the second Stanley Cup in a row. But the Edmonton Oilers, though, I think are going to be the top of this conference. The Oilers are a great team. They have a lot of good young players. McDavid, I will say, I'll give McDavid credit where credit is due. He is an excellent, excellent player. But Connor McDavid, though, it's going to be tough for him to really stretch himself to be – if he wants to be one of the best, he has to beat the best. And he has to prove that by helping the Oilers win the division this year. I think the Oilers will win the division this year, but they really need to prove themselves, everybody. Like, this is – if they want to prove themselves as a legit threat, this is the year to do it. Next up, I'm going to go to the Central in the Western Conference. I'm going to the Central Division. And this is a little bit more competitive, and I have a lot of changes that I made from my original video. This is probably one where I had the most change because I was flip-flopping between a lot of teams. But last but not least is kind of obvious, the Colorado Avalanche. They're still a long ways away from competing. The Colorado Avalanche are just pretty bad. Did nothing to improve. They lost Calvin Pickard in the expansion draft. That was a terrible decision by them. It was on their better young goaltenders. It's going to be tough for the Avalanche this year. The Avalanche are going to have another tough year. And it sucks because they have young talent, but it's going to be wasted once again. Next up is the Minnesota Wild at 6th place. Yep, I have the Minnesota Wild in 6th place. Why? I think this division is going to be coming down to a couple points. Third and 6th is literally going to be between a couple points. I have the Minnesota Wild at 6 because I think the Minnesota Wild did get a little worse. They did add some good pieces, and recently Matt Cullen got there, but the Wild didn't look good in their first playoff season. Like their playoffs since they got there, they did not look good. They lost a couple key pieces. They do have a young core, but it's gonna be tough for them to really compete in this division. It's so tough to be in the Central. Like the Central is probably the most competitive division in all of the NHL, other than the Metropolitan, because probably even more than the Metropolitan right now, because the Central, you got so many playoff teams, but from 6 to 1 are all playoff teams. But we'll see how they play out. Next up is the St. Louis Blues. I think the Blues did get a little worse in the offseason. The Blues are a good team. They have a very good young core. They have some great scorers like Vladimir Tarasenko. It's going to be tough for them to compete against the playoffs when other teams are getting better in that division. Like my 4th place team, they barely lose out, but my 4th place team is the Winnipeg Jets. I love the Winnipeg Jets, what they did in the offseason. They got a lot better. I think that their free agency signs are really good. They didn't lose much in their expansion draft in the offseason. The Jets are going to come out and surprise everybody, I think. The Jets will be one of the better teams in that division, but they're going to completely surprise a lot of people. They'll surprise a lot of people. I think the Jets are definitely improving, and I like what they did. So I got to give the Winnipeg Jets the fourth place spot. Third place spot is probably the most improved team out of the entire division, the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars did a lot to improve themselves over last year. They got Ben Bishop, who could be a number one goaltender in Dallas. The Stars are going to be a really good team. They have some great young talent, and Jamie Benn and others, and they got a really good team right now. They are definitely going to improve from last year. Last year, they did not make the playoffs. They were pretty bad, but this year, they're going to look a lot better and return to playoff form. Next up is the Chicago Blackhawks, and I got to say this right now. This is the last year or two that Chicago is really going to compete for a division title, or at least compete in general with the NHL, because the Blackhawks, I think, are going to go down to being one of the worst teams in the league within the next 5 to 10 years, within the next 5 years or so. Why? I think Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane are getting older. I think their magic's run out. Their team isn't as good as it once was. They're trying to bring back some of their 2015 Cup squad, but I think it's a little too late. I think the Blackhawks will be a playoff team, but this is really their last run at being a top team. I think they're going to get a little worse this year. And I just think that the Blackhawks won't be as good as the division winner, which I have the division winner, the Nashville Predators. It's kind of obvious. The Nashville Predators they did lose some pieces, but they also got a bit better in the offseason. They got some good pieces in the draft. They did lose James Neal to the Vegas Golden Knights, which is going to hurt them, but you also got Nick Bonino signing there. You got some good talent signing in Nashville. Their defense is really good. That's their strong point, is their defense. That is one of the best defenses in the league. I will admit that. And they're going to get much better. I know Pekka Rinne is also on his last legs as being a top goaltender, but UC Saros is going to be a good goaltender. He will be great replacing Pekka Rinne when that time comes. And the Nashville Predators are honestly going to be one of those teams that are going to compete for a while for a Stanley Cup, honestly. I think they will compete because they're a good young defensive team, and that's mainly their strong point is their defense, where the offense mainly get complimenting from their defense. That's why I got the Nashville Predators winning the division. Now we move on to the Eastern Conference. Starting out with the worst team in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are officially in rebuild mode. They're opening up a new stadium, and it's not going to be good. The Detroit Red Wings, though, do have a lot going for them with some young talent, but it's not enough. The Red Wings are still losing some of their older stars, and even though they signed Trevor Daley, it's going to be tough for them to really compete against some of the other teams when they're getting better in the Eastern Conference. Detroit's opening up a brand new stadium, the Little Caesars Arena, and that could be the best opening for that stadium when you know your team is one of the worst in the Eastern Conference. Next up is the Buffalo Sabres at 75 points. The Sabres, I think, are getting better bit by bit. Losing Bosma, though, was kind of a questionable decision, but the Sabres really do need some other pieces. They really want to be a top-level team, but right now they're not even close. And that's what I honestly think is going to happen. That's pretty much what I think is going to happen, honestly. The Sabres are just another interesting team, but they're still not there yet, honestly. Next up is the Boston Bruins at 86 points. The Boston Bruins are definitely one of those teams that really could be a great team, but they're just mediocre, honestly. They're mediocre. They really don't have much going on, and unfortunately, it's going to come out on them. So it sucks because the Bruins do have some talent, but they're not really going to do much. So, oh my God, that's pretty much what I got to say about the Boston Bruins. Next up is the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens is one of those teams that really, really have got a lot worse in this. Dang it, sorry. The Montreal Canadiens got worse this offseason. They got a lot worse, and they are just what's the word for them? They're there, but they're not going to do much this offseason, honestly. They really didn't do much to improve. The Montreal Canadiens are one of those teams that is going to get a lot worse this year. They're going to get a lot worse. Their team is definitely missing a lot of pieces. Signing Carey Price to an 8-year deal was one of the worst deals this entire offseason. He's a great goalie, but he's not going to last for that contract. It's terrible. Terrible contract. The Canadiens lost a lot of depth. And, yep, PK Subban is looking like the real winner from that trade. Shea Weber is going to waste another year in Montreal. Next up is the Florida Panthers. I think the Panthers did have a lot of injuries last year that kept them from really competing for retaining that division title. But the Florida Panthers are definitely a young team, have a lot of great young players. The Florida Panthers, though, do have questions on their offense because Jaromir Jagr is no longer there. So what's going to happen with the Panthers? Time will tell, but you know what? They've got a coach, which I like the hire of their coach. And I think they could compete, but I don't think they'll be in the playoffs this year. I think they'll be slightly off. Next up is the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs are a young team that's only gotten better in the offseason. They got better with the signing of Patrick Marleau. Their team has Austin Matthews. Yes, Austin Matthews in the forefront, being one of the top young captains there. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be a good team. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be a lot better this year. Next up is the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning missed the playoffs by 2 points because of injuries. Tampa Bay is not going to have that problem this year. I think they'll expect them back to be the rebound back and being one of the top teams of the division. The Tampa Bay Lightning do have some young players, but Vasilevsky is going to be their question mark. Will he play a great full season? Time will only tell. Next up is my division winner, the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators, I think, are honestly the only team that really can give Pittsburgh a run for their money with their defensive scheme. Their defense is what made Pittsburgh really struggle in some games in that Eastern Conference final. The Senators, I think, are just a bit better than the Tampa Bay Lightning, even though they lose a little bit of pieces. And I think this is the last run, especially with Craig Anderson getting to the point where he's almost 39 years old. It's going to be tough for the Senators to really play well after this, but right now, I think the Senators are on their last run as a top team. 1 second. Now we go to the next division, and finally, the Metropolitan Division. My worst team in the Metropolitan Division is going to surprise a lot of people, but for me, this is a clear-cut choice, and that is the Philadelphia Flyers. Yep, the Philadelphia Flyers are the worst team, in my opinion, in this division. They didn't do much to get better. They did improve a bit on goaltender, but what else did they really do? They really didn't do much. They lost one of their better players to the Vegas Golden Knights. They didn't really rebound. They did get a good pick in the draft, but he's not going to be ready, I think, for a little while. And I just think the Devils, which are going to be right above them at 84 points, which would be the 7th-place team, are just slightly better. They're slightly better, and their goalie's a little bit better. Corey Schneider's a lot better. And I think I trust New Jersey's offense compared to Philadelphia's, honestly. Now we'll go into the 6th-place team, the Islanders. The Islanders, I think, are really pushing it with John Tavares. I really think John Tavares should leave and go to Toronto, honestly. Personally, I'd love to see that happen. I'd love to see the Maple Leafs as a big contender like they were in the past. And I really think they're pushing John Tavares. They didn't do anything to really give him much hope at all. I think he will be traded, honestly, to the Maple Leafs in the middle of the season. The Islanders will start off strong, but once they lose Tavares, their season goes down the toilet. That's just my opinion. Next up is the Carolina Hurricanes. The Carolina Hurricanes improved a lot in the offseason. They got a lot of former Chicago Blackhawks players, including Trevor Van Riesek. Yep, he definitely went to the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes are getting a lot better. Cam Ward is still a prime goalie, though. He won the Stanley Cup as a rookie. He's still gonna get. I think he still has some good talent on him, and the Hurricanes will definitely be a sleeper team, in my opinion. Next up is the Blue Jackets. I think the Blue Jackets are definitely better than they were last year, but as a record compared to the rest of the division this year, I don't think they'll finish in the top where they were. I think they'll finish off a little worse, but I think the Blue Jackets did get a bit better roster-wise, but I think just with their schedule, it's a little bit harder than what it was last year. Now, the third place team, the Washington Capitals. Poor Capitals. You can never get past the second round, and it'll prove it once again. The Washington Capitals lost a ton of talent, lost a ton of depth in this offseason. They should have traded away Ovechkin. I think they will end up trading him away eventually, but the Capitals really don't have much going for them other than they do have some good players like TJ Oshie and Nicholas Backstrom and Genny Kuznetsov, but that's about it. And Brady Holtby's going to hold down the floor, but they don't have the depth to compete with some of the other better teams in the league. I'm sorry. Next up is the New York Rangers, and with the Rangers, I think this is Henrik Lundqvist's last run. If they want to win a Stanley Cup, he has to do it now. The Rangers are going to be a better team than the Capitals, and I think they will play very well for Henrik Lundqvist. They got Kevin Shattenkirk in the offseason, very good pickup. That's just my honest opinion. I really think that the Rangers are a bit better than the Washington Capitals right now. And for my opinion, the best team in the league, no doubt. They got better. They didn't lose anybody big. But you know what? They still kept their same core. And they're only going to get better. Defending Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins. And 118 points. I think the Penguins are going to be the league leader. They're going to win the division. They're going to win the President's Trophy. And they're going to compete for a third Stanley Cup in a row. Now let's get into the playoff predictions. All right, so the playoff predictions. I'm going to start things off with give me a second. All right, there you go. I'm going to start things off with the Eastern Conference and move my way down to the Western Conference as I went up and down to up last time. I'm going to go another way. So starting off the Hurricanes and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Hurricanes are going to get better. It's good to be in the playoffs, but the Penguins, though, are going to be too much for them. Penguins in 4. The Hurricanes, I don't think have won a single playoff game against the Penguins, ever. I think they've had 2 series, and I think they've gotten swept both times, from what I remember. I have to look that up. Give me a second. Yeah. Okay, so the only time they did meet was in the 2009 playoffs, and they ended up getting swept. Well, it's going to happen again. I don't see how much it's really going to change, though. So, Penguins at 4. Capitals and Rangers. The Capitals once again will not even taste the third round. So, give me the Rangers in 7. I just think the Rangers have had the Capitals' number in the playoffs in the past couple of years. It will continue once again. Blue Jackets versus the Senators. This is going to be my favorite matchup to watch in the first round for the Eastern Conference, other than the other one. But this is going to be a great matchup to watch. But I honestly think the Senators will squeak out the Blue Jackets just because they have home field advantage. I can honestly see Blue Columbus winning it too. Either or. Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, this is my biggest upset in the entire playoffs. My biggest upset in the entire playoffs, the Toronto Maple Leafs over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Why? I think that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be a show. This is their first year showing they're going to be a legit contender. And they will beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa Bay in Game 7. Unbelievable, but yep. I think it's going to happen. Yes, I got my Penguins cup right here. Now we get into the Western Conference. Start out with the Jets and the Predators. I think the Nashville Predators will have a tough time playing against Winnipeg, but in the end, though, the Nashville Predators will move on. The Jets will definitely prove themselves to be a better team in the future. But right now, Nashville's got a much better team. Predators in 6. The Stars and the Blackhawks. Ooh, this would be a good matchup to see. But once again, for the 3rd year in a row, the Blackhawks will lose in the first round. The Stars will advance in 7 games. Sharks and Oilers. This is a repeat from last year's first round matchup, and it will be no different whatsoever. I got the Oilers in 6 games. Then you have the Flames and the Ducks. This time, it's another repeat, but this time I got the Flames. I think the Flames will move on in advance to play the Oilers. I think that in Game 7 Game 7 in Calgary will be the difference. Give me the Calgary Flames. But, the Ducks could win it too. The Ducks will definitely surprise us. So, next up is the Penguins and the Rangers. I think that Henrik Lundqvist will officially retire in Pittsburgh after Game 5. The Penguins will win in 5 games, and then Henrik Lundqvist will officially announce his retirement as he's skating off with the other guys from the New York Rangers. So, Penguins in 5. I just think the Penguins just have more depth. They have much better talent than the Rangers, and I think Matt Murray will definitely outshine Lundqvist. But, the Rangers will get one in New York, though. Next up is the Maple Leafs and the Senators. Oh, now this is another good one. The Maple Leafs are going to continue their Cinderella run, I think. And the Senators, I'd love to see a rematch, but I want to see something different, too. So give me the Maple Leafs in 7 games. I think the Maple Leafs are going to please surprise everybody, especially with Marleau helping them out. I know they have Carlson and Bobby Ryan in Ottawa, but I think, honestly, that the Maple Leafs will be just a slight bit better than the Senators. Then you have the Stars and the Predators. I think Nashville cleans house here. In 5 games, Nashville will move on past the Dallas Stars. I think their goaltending will be slightly better. I think their playoff experience will definitely help them out. And the Stars have only won first-round series, but they really haven't gone past the second round since 2000, I think it was. Yeah, I think since 2000, if I remember. Because that was the last time they went to the Stanley Cup. But then you have the Flames and the Oilers. Another great series. All Canada series. This is going to be a lot of people watching this series. But in the end, though, I think the Edmonton Oilers' depth is going to be much bit better than the Calgary Flames' depth. So give me the Oilers in 7. Then you have the Maple Leafs and the Penguins. This is the conference finals, by the way. The conference finals, Maple Leafs and Penguins. Maple Leafs will provide a great fight, but in the end, though, Pittsburgh's depth and too much playoff experience will be too much for them. The Penguins will win in 4 games. Then the Predators and the Oilers, probably my favorite series to see out of the entire postseason, other than the Stanley Cup final matchup. Nashville's a great defense versus Edmonton's offense. It's going to be a great, great showcase of teams. But in the end, though, I like the Edmonton Oilers to go back to the Stanley Cup for the first time since 2006. Then you have the Stanley Cup Finals matchup that I think everyone wants to see, and I mean every NHL fan would want to see this. This is their number one matchup that they want to see in the Stanley Cup Finals. This is their number one matchup. Oilers versus the Penguins. Now, this would be such a great series, not only for the NHL, but for broadcasters everywhere. All people from Canada will go for Edmonton, and everyone in America will go for Pittsburgh. 2 great Titans fighting it out. The next one versus the Kid. You can't ask for a better series, but I just think the Kid Sidney Crosby and his experience is just a bit more experience and more knowledge will help him repeat for a third time in a row against the Edmonton Oilers. So I have the Pittsburgh Penguins three-peating right now. That is my prediction right now. I won't make another really big prediction video, honestly, until the start of the season. But right now, honestly, that's the series everyone wants to see. And I just think Pittsburgh has just too much depth and too much more experience compared to Edmonton. I'd like to see if Edmonton wins the Stanley Cup Series, I won't be mad. At least we got into 3 in a row. But you know what? Right now, with the experience, with the depth, with the offense, give me the Penguins to three-peat. That's going to do it, guys, for my NHL 2017-2018 second season preview. My third and final one right before the season, but I won't do playoffs at that point. I'll just do updated scenarios if there is. But if there really isn't, I'll keep my predictions right now. But right now, this is my lock predictions right now. If anything big changes, especially with the preseason coming up, anything happens in the preseason, I'll update my predictions accordingly. But right now, this is my official lock for the 2017-2018 NHL season. If you guys like this video, let me know what your Stanley Cup predictions and NHL predictions are in the comments below. That being said, guys, see you later. Stay awesome, and go Penguins. Time to earn another one of these. Let's go for 6.